Mortal Kombat 1 is finally out. This latest installment in the franchise is a reboot. Sort of. Let me explain. But before that, this is our video review of Mortal Kombat. But you should also check out our written review in the link below. For anyone who cares about spoilers for all the previous Mortal Kombat games, spoiler alert, you can skip to this timestamp where the spoilers end. Cue montage. It's technically a reboot where the continuity of the story is tossed out of the window for new beginnings. It's arguably not a reboot because the restarting of this timeline is part of the linear plot. Here's what the timeline looks like when visualized. We start as normal with the first few Mortal Kombat games going from 1 up to 4, followed by Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon. When we get to MK9, Raiden then sort of reboots the timeline after he sees Shao Kahn winning at the end of Armageddon. Before Raiden died, he sent visions to himself in the past, whispering he must win in an attempt to change the fate of the world. Anyways, moving on. Next we have Mortal Kombat 10 and Mortal Kombat 11, where Kronika is all like, no, Raiden is messing with the timeline, ruining the balance of good and evil, favoring good. She sort of reboots the timeline again and has a god-on-god battle against a fused Raiden and Liu Kang. After they beat her, Liu Kang tries to manipulate the hourglass, but without the crown, it's futile. Shang Tsung says, I'll retrieve it, betrays Liu Kang, loses to Liu Kang anyways, and Liu Kang puts on the crown, which gives him the power to create a brand new timeline where he resides as a fire god. And surely nothing else is going to go wrong. Number of timelines so far? 3. Which brings us to now, Mortal Kombat 1. So to answer your question, is it a reboot? Probably. A soft one. Kinda. The story of Mortal Kombat 1 is as every bit as serious and unserious as you would expect. The decision to start from scratch allows anyone to join in on the fun of the lore. It might not be how it was originally, but with multiple versions and timelines, what matters is the present. This provides opportunities for origin stories, like how Kung Lao figures out the hat situation, or how Kenshi loses his vision. To stay as spoiler-free as possible, expect something akin to a 90s action plot where it's a monkey sees action, neuron activation kind of vibe, culminating in one big action-packed final battle. It's honestly like that feeling of watching a highly anticipated superhero film. The moment-to-moment story experience is simply fun and you can't help but enjoy yourself. But once you take a step back and look closely at the story, you realize it leaves a lot to be desired.
Time to go home.
A lot of plot elements can get lost with the amount of characters involved, and you can only reset a timeline so many times before people stop caring about this end-of-the-world situation. Mortal Kombat has always been the game with the over-the-top violence, known for its brutal yet comical gore. The whole reason the ASRB age ratings exist is because of Mortal Kombat after all. There has been, however, a massive shift in style between the games and the previous ones, as they seem to have brightened things up a bit and leaned into the absurdity of extreme violence. The gore isn't so suspiciously detailed to the point where you have to wonder, how did they know what a body would look like when cut in half? Instead, it's more of a, it's not how sliced bodies look at all. Wait, why do I know that? The brutal gameplay is now a lot easier to get into if you're queasy with blood and all of that, since they leaned into the violence so much it almost feels comical. Blood comes in big buckets, skeletons are as white as they come, and all of the viscera are fairly nondescript. They just come in blobs and vague shapes of what you might think they could be. Vague gore aside, it's been great seeing all these characters come more and more to life in such vibrant detail over the years. And Mortal Kombat 1 is no exception with its crisp visuals. Every bit of eye candy that the game presents is a spectacle unlike anything before. Stages that come to life, movesets that are every bit breathtaking, and lush colors that fill each character's designs. That is, if you're into them. Some don't completely agree with the changes in design at all, like Melina and Kitana. But it's a good thing that the game has cosmetics to switch it up. Earthrealm has departed from their usual Shaolin martial arts combat music by William Rouget we heard in Mortal Kombat 11. Now we have a wide variety of tracks, from familiar Chinese melodies to industrial rock, trap music, and even EDM. In Mortal Kombat 11, it was kind of hard to pick a favorite stage music from the previous game, since they sounded so similar to each other. In Mortal Kombat 1, however, it's much easier to tell which stage you're in by the stage music alone. It just goes to show how much more upbeat and distinct the music is now. It gets you hyped up and your blood pumping. Blood that will pump out nicely from your half-ripped body after a fatality. The voice acting is outstanding. They do a great balancing act between the world is ending seriousness
That's then be Liu Kang's lapdog.
and the quippy cheesy banter.
Can't hurt her. Her? I'm worried about us.
although some might feel hit or miss.
Don't I scare you in the least?
And while it's sad that the pre-match banter was reduced to just a loading screen gimmick, they do such a great job of delivering these one-liners that you'll easily forget that they're saying one less line than they used to. Besides, all that is just to get you to the best part of Mortal Kombat 1 faster, the gameplay. The gameplay is every bit as familiar and different as you would expect from a new title. Familiar features such as the old meter system from Mortal Kombat 9, combos, and the classic NetherRealm Studios animations are still here. The new title is spiced up with the introduction of cameo fighters, adding variety to your gameplay. Depending on what you choose, there can be different effects. They can do cool things your character can't, giving you a way to supplement your weaknesses. Or you can just double down and enhance what you're already good at. That is, if you can stomach the grind to unlock all of them, as the experience gain is very slow. The game does an excellent job of introducing a ton of options to make the gameplay as accessible as possible to a wider audience. That being said, it's still a fighting game, and it comes with its own unique issues. This entry into the series can be really easy to get into, especially if you're focusing on the single player content. But once that story mode well has dried up, and trust me, there isn't a whole lot, you'll be left alone with a few options. You could either try Invasions, which is a PvE dungeon style RPG mode complete with talismans that allow you to cast spells. Or you can try online play, which will
Test your might.
against others who play just as much or even more than you do. This can feel like an overwhelming jump from CPU to real players because it is. It's a good thing that the game provides you with a comprehensive tutorial to learn everything there is to know about Mortal Kombat and maybe even some stuff about fighting games in general. So you can at least have a foot to stand on. But even with that tutorial mode, nothing teaches better than experience. It is a given that fighting games are a niche genre, and because of this, there aren't a lot of concurrent players at its peak. Even less so with the absence of crossplay at this moment in time. You're going to get matched with a lot less players, and the queue times or connection issues might become a major problem. Fighting games have been evolving, and Mortal Kombat 1 somehow feels like a step back in some of these multiplayer features. We've seen Guilty Gear Strive and Street Fighter 6 with their own hub systems that let you see players in real time. Mortal Kombat 1 has a menu. Street Fighter 6 introduced Extreme Mode, where it's gimmicky and unlike the traditional one-on-one. Mortal Kombat 1 has just the classic. Just because the plotline went back into time doesn't mean the multiplayer mode has to either. But I digress. Some of these range from minor nitpicks to problems a free content update could fix in the future, which is a bummer having to think of it that way.
Keep talking, will ya? To keep my mind off this.
Mortal Kombat 1 has a full-fledged story mode, the various towers everyone is familiar with, collectibles, a new game invasion mode, an online mode that's a staple for every fighting game. It's sure to take quite a bit of time to complete them all, and since it's a fighting game, the online self-improvement loop never ends. It's pretty jarring, in a good way, that there hasn't been 7 different forms of currencies in your inventory for microtransactions. There is one form of premium currency, but it really is just for additional special outfits, like a Day of the Dead Sub-Zero. So unless you're planning to get the DLC or pimping out your character, you get what you pay for in Mortal Kombat 1. Depressing how that's something to praise at this point. All things considered, we're giving Mortal Kombat 1 a 7.2, because it's pretty cool, but it could be cooler. Like, you know, adding the crypt. Oh my god, where's the crypt? It's like one of the most immersive things Mortal Kombat has done. How could they do this?